Alright, so our blade, our cutting surface of our blade is exactly the same as the original. The blade width is a little bit longer overall. Not a big deal. This area here will be exactly the same as the old tool. The cutting surface will be the same as the old tool. So I've laid out on here where the blade has to get put in at. It actually goes this way. Where the blade has to get put in at, where we have to make holes for that, and where our initial recess goes in and gets cut down to before we put our angle on it. So this will just be a square cutout. So we'll come over to our hacking stock with our saw, and we'll cut that initial recess into our handle. And that line should line up with our blade when we're done. Okay, the lines look pretty even. And we can trim that up with our knife later. And that'll be our initial cutout. Now, if we had chisels in our kit, which we haven't added yet because they haven't been a necessity yet. There's nothing we haven't done yet that we couldn't do with another tool, and we didn't have to have or carry a chisel. The same thing with this. A chisel would make this easier, but we can cut this out with our knife. Now, this wood's kind of hard. It's going to take a little time to do this, but we can come in here and we can baton our axe through here, or we can just cut the whole thing out with our knife and just split it out a little at a time, just like this, with push cuts. We've got a bevel cut in there, or a stop cut in there, so we're not going to go beyond that as long as we're careful. Big difference between working dry wood and working green wood with carving tools, because dry wood gets hard quick when you're talking about stuff like black walnut. Okay, so now what we're looking at is this tool like this. We've got our recess cut out. Everything lines up good. We've got our holes here our blade's going to go into, and now what we have to do is we have to figure out this bevel on the back side right here, and it goes to just behind the blade. So it's a very, very slight bevel right there. That goes just behind where the blade's going to be. So if we look at it from here, where that stop cut's at, there's a bevel right there. That's about 30 degrees, about the same as the grind on our blade. So we're going to have to kind of guess at that 30-degree angle and just come in here and remove some material at an angle and see what it looks like, and then go from there. So we'll just remove a little bit at a time until we get that bevel that we want. So I'm just coming in here with my knife and I'm rocking into that thing, and then coming in on the other side and cutting that bevel in a little at a time. just like this. Just straight cuts, and I'm only going to that line. And I'm trying to keep my knife on that angle the whole time to keep that angle straight. Okay, so once I'm happy with that initial bevel, and I'm pretty close now to being happy, you straighten it up just a little bit right there. Remember, that's just a release bevel that's going to let shavings come out once this is in here, because our cut actually comes from this side, and you'll have a little bit of a bevel in here that will let those shavings come out of this side. Okay, this blade will be in this direction like this, and here is where you're going to do your cutting. This is all release angle on this side. Okay, once we have our holes in here and we've got our blade lined up, we know we're going straight down here. Now we've got a little bit of a recess right here, an angle here, a bevel line that allows that blade to cut. So we got to take this out for the moment, and we've got to cut that bevel in, and we've got to be really careful with that bevel, because whatever we expose for blade right there is going to dictate the depth of our cut. So I'm going to come in here with my knife and just start shaving a nice shallow angle on this thing, just like this. Again, I'm trying to closely match the original tool. And I'll have to cut that from both sides. Just like that. Just real nice shallow cuts. I'm just taking a little bit of a risk here. I mean, this is definitely something that's all guesswork at this point. I can knock the blade back out of there if it's not right, as long as I don't use any adhesive to get it in there. Hopefully I can knock it back out. But once I get it seated where I want to, I don't want to have to move it. Okay, I'm looking at that bevel line and seeing where that's at, and just kind of making sure that I even it up on both sides. This is going to have to be done fast, I can tell you that right now. Alright, now that we got everything seated the way we want it to, I guess I should have noticed that big recess right there on the sides. Probably burned in there just like I had to do it. Now we'll go back and get this blade right. Get it heat treated and set up right. So we've got our tool seated now. Just squeeze it in a vise here to seat it. Our gap doesn't look too bad. What we need to do now is we need to give it a final buff on a buffer just to knock the burr off of it. I'm pretty sure it would cut like a maniac right now. And then we really need to epoxy this thing down in there a little bit just to make sure it's not going to move on us. Kind of going light with it to begin with until I find the right angle here. look at that. Man, oh man, oh man. Woo-wee. That thing is about perfect. I'm not sure how you could get any better than that. Guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me for this short little mini-series of videos recreating this antique draw shave. And one thing that I want to mention about this before the end of this video is that tools like this that don't necessarily require a handle to be carried. Again, it's a metal tool with a wooden handle, so you're carrying the metal blade, and you can make the handle if you have to, or replace it like we did here. We could have made that handle for this blade had this tool broken. The Mastermere find, which was a Viking tool chest that was found full of tools. The chain was hung up on a plow that was pulled up, and it was a Viking era tool chest. And inside that tool chest there were several tools very similar to this. So the tool itself is a timeless design for a carving and shaving type tool that's been around since the 10th century. It was used all the way into the 19th and 20th century and can still be used today. So understanding how to recreate these type tools or make these type tools to begin with is very important to our self-reliance. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I appreciate everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends. And I'll be back with another video.